Hi, welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. Once again, outstanding guest, and you know who's involved is old Dr. Eugene Williams. You know, he's everywhere. But anyway, our special guest is Raymont Johnson. I mean, he's the author of You Think You Are a Leader. I know I thought so, but boy, after reading this book, I had some second thoughts. Welcome to Ed Brown Show.
Well, thank you, sir, for having me on.
How do you come up with this title? Because this title, it can actually apply to in your home, anywhere.
Anywhere, yeah.
Anywhere, it's not a formal thing. It's
Right.
most of us think we're the leaders of our homes.
Homes, yeah, we think. Till we ask our wife, right? Then
we find out, wait a minute, I was supposed to make that decision. I said, we already made it.
Right, yeah.
This is your position.
This is my position, yeah. Right. I make all the decisions in my household, but sometimes I just ask my wife, what are they? You know what I mean? Right. So that's how that works.
Right, that's what I mean.
So you call yourself a leader. A simple guide to identifying your leadership style. One of the things I found out, and I didn't know this, even though my undergrad degree was in business management, I really wasn't familiar with these leadership principles and these leadership styles until I started working on my graduate degree, which is a master's in organizational leadership. And I go, wait a minute, we're talking about these leadership styles. I've been working in management, have a degree, and I don't understand this. So if I don't understand it, there's probably a pretty good chance there's a lot of other people out there that don't understand their leadership style. One of the things my pastor, Michael Freeman, says, the power to define is the power to fulfill. So you have to be able to define, and then you can fulfill. So that's why I call this a simple guide to identifying those leadership styles, and then you'll be able to fulfill your purpose in whatever you're doing.
Right. And what happened with your association with Dr. Williams?
Well,
Dr. Williams, I mean, what do? You go around and find these outstanding people. Tell us a little bit about your...
Everybody likes my smile.
Is that
and
it?
They like my gray.
Even the president's wife, right?
Yeah. So I've known Mr. Johnson for a long time. As a matter of fact, I met Mr. Johnson about 2 years ago when he videotaped me when I was discussing my new book, Grounded in the Word, A Guide to Mastering Standardized Test Vocabulary and Biblical Comprehension. He did a beautiful job, and I never forgot that. And then recently, as scholars do, we were visiting the library, and there he was. And he said to me, I have my book published. And I was so happy, because that's one of the things that I'm most concerned about, helping people, getting people started with books, writing their books. And when he showed it to me, I said to him, without any hesitation, that's a book that Ed Brown would like to have on his show. And that's how we got to work together.
Fantastic. Now, how did you get into this? You just decided, you were saying earlier, you felt that even though you had technical training in this line, there was something missing.
Yeah, it was something missing in that. I guess you'd say that thing that was missing was still a clear understanding of, I'm doing a lot of things, but what are they? Because when we talk about leadership a lot of times, and people will talk about leadership, they really give a lot of principles about leadership. This principle, that principle, they give a lot of principles. So people are trying to use these principles, but if they don't have a set style of leadership to apply the principles to help them accomplish what they want to accomplish, you can find yourself all over the place. You're just trying the latest thing.
Yeah, getting into the book, what's this using a butter knife as a screwdriver? When I got to that part, I said, this illustration here is said is something different, very different. A butter knife, although screwdriver is the formal way to do things, but if you want to really get the job done, you have to use something else. And you said a butter knife. Tell us, how did you get into that?
Ed, unlike you, I wasn't raised with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Oh, wow. I don't know where you got that from. Well, somebody's spreading rumors around.
I grew up in a small town in Ohio called Alliance, Ohio. And we grew up meager surroundings, let's say, very poor, you know. We were very poor. We lived out in the country. We called it the country.
All of us lived in the country.
Yeah, we all lived in the country. We were in the country, and we didn't have, we only had running water in our kitchen. You know?
Yeah.
We had to use the outhouse. Yeah, I don't know if
Right.
you're familiar.
Yeah, boy, I sat down and I went through the book, and I remember those outstanding
Bring
things.
back some
you said.
not so fond memories, right?
Right,
You know,
right,
when we're talking
yeah.
about that. But one of the things, my mother, my beloved mother, passed away some years ago. We didn't have proper tools, so when we needed to work on something, and this is where I get this turning butter knives into screwdrivers and
yeah.
turning shoes into hammers. So when we needed to fix something, we had a nail. We would just take off our shoe or find a shoe, and we would nail the thing in. If we had something, we need a screwdriver, we go to the kitchen drawer and get a butter knife, and we would use that as a screwdriver. Of course, my mother didn't like that. She complained that we're bending up all of her butter knives and
Right.
using them as screwdrivers.
Right.
See, but this is what happens in life, and how a lot of people are going about their leadership, how they're going about running their family, how they're going about life. You can get it done with a screwdriver, you can get it done with a shoe, but if you had the proper flathead screwdriver or the proper Phillips head screwdriver, you would be able to do the job efficiently in the way it's meant to be done. If I have the right hammer rather than my shoe, I can get it done again very efficiently. But we find ourselves, that's what we're doing. We're making it up as we go.
But in relationship to getting the job done and utilizing what you have, how do you get into that frame of mind, not letting that be a handicap?
Well, yeah, many times we find ourselves, you have to work with what you have, right? You know, and that's what we did as young kids. We work with what we had. But what we do is, it doesn't become a handicap because you have to first identify one of the things of leadership. You have to identify, what am I not good at? If I can identify what I'm not good at, then I know, okay, now I know what I need to work on. A lot of times people will focus on what they're good at, but the thing that's going to bring you down is what you're not good at. That's what's going to cause you to fail, not the thing that you know how to do. And sometimes that's surrounding yourself with people that know things that you don't know.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit more about the book as far as the chapter. This laissez-faire. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we talk about these different leadership styles, and a lot of people, if I ask them what's their leadership style, they wouldn't know. They'll start giving me characteristics of their leadership style. But in this book, we go through different leadership styles, and you mentioned one, the laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, yeah, I guess that's originated out of a French term.
French, right.
Laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, and when we think of the French, we think of this as very laid back. Laissez-faire leader doesn't really give any direction at all. That person just depends on the followers to be able to do what they need to do. That style of leadership isn't used very often because in order to use that style of leadership, you'd have to have people that are well-trained, well-disciplined, and that they don't need any guidance. Though having a group of people like that is hard to do. You know, it's hard to find a group that they're just all self-disciplined, they're going to do what they need to do. So laissez-faire is not a style of leadership that is very popular. I guess you might find some situations to use it. I've never seen it though.
You know, quite often youngsters getting involved, sometimes adults, into the term follow the leader. What do you think about that?
Yes, follow the leader is a great thing to do if that leader is following you somewhere positive. You know, I'm an educator by trade, so I deal with this all the time. So yes, we do need to follow a leader. One of the other things we say is hang with those that have your solution, get away from those that have your problem. So if I'm going to follow someone, let me follow someone that has my solutions, that has my answers, that can add to my life. Because when we deal with people, people are like math problems, right? They either add, subtract, or divide you.
Yeah, sure.
So whoever you're hanging around with, they're either going to add to your life, they're either going to take away from your life, and sometimes they will actually even divide you and split you up. So who are you following is the key.
You know, quite often one of the things that youngsters have to face, and usually they can't face, their parents can't help them along with, and that is one thing. That's peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
How do you suggest youngsters get away from peer pressure?
Peer pressure. Yeah, that's something I deal with all the time. Like I say, educator by trade in high schools. I see that all the time. I see young people that are falling prey to that peer pressure back to following the wrong person.
Right.
So what we have to emphasize with young people is you have to find your identity and you have to find your purpose. If you can find your identity and find your purpose and have a passion for that, then you will know that I am going this direction, and anyone that I come across in life that is not going to help add to me, to take me toward that direction, I'm going to leave them alone. I have to have the power to stand on my own.
Well, how do you instill that in youngsters, especially when I would say in junior high level, where they're looking to be accepted?
Yeah,
everybody wants to be accepted.
Yes, and this is true. This is where, and in our society we deal with, this is where parents come in first. See, at home, they have to get an identity at home. And if they get identity and they understand who they are and whose they are, then they will not be as influenced when they go into the schools.
Right.
Because survey after survey shows us that the most influential person in a child's life are their parents.
Right.
Now, as parents, we think they're not listening to us, you know,
Right.
but they are listening.
Yeah, right.
They're listening to us. So it starts at home. That's where we have to start.
Yeah. Well, how the problem that we've had in these different conferences, and you've been in the education system, is getting the parents to set the correct example. Now, it's tough for them to influence the youngsters. I would take a basic thing like dress. If they're wearing their pants down below the butt themselves, you know, and they expect the child not to pick up on the habits that the parents feel, well, this is the way I am. Well, you know, they don't know that the child usually is very observant to you, and that goes along with eating habits, all sorts of habits. And you see the parent, and you look at the child, and you can see that the child has picked up the wrong eating habits because he looks just like, or she looks just like the parents. You know what I mean? And how do you get the parents to understand that they themselves are role models?
Are role models. One of the things we talk about is modeling the desired behavior. One of the things that my wife and I do, we have a ministry called Family Empowerment Ministries. And what we do is we have these sessions we do that's called Empowering Families for Success. So in empowering those families for success, it comes back to education. So we have to educate the parents, and we have to help the parents understand the influence that they have. So if I can educate you and show you that, hey, you have to understand you are the most influential person in their life.
Right.
And whatever you model, you have to walk the walk, talk the talk. You can't say, just as an example we use all the time, you can't tell a child, you know, using drugs are really bad for you.
Right.
Can you go upstairs and get my marijuana for me? You know,
right.
So you have to model the desired behavior. So again, that comes through education. And many people do not understand the influence that they have on
their own children. Right,
they don't
exactly. When in a situation that occurred in a store where the parent was very berate about some problem that they had, and they were, you know, going through the thing of blessing the clerk out, you know, and the child was standing there, you know, and I mean, it was using profanity. You know what I mean?
What did they just teach the child?
Right.
Conflict resolution.
Right.
This is how we resolve our conflicts.
Right.
You know?
And then what happens is they utilize it as example, and when it occurs in their life, they react the same way.
Same way, yeah, because this is what we do in our household.
Yeah,
when we get children in school, and if they see their parents at home, or their mother and their friend, or whatever the situation is, and they see them at home when they have a conflict, the way they resolve their conflict is they, curse and fight, and then they're at school and they have a conflict, and the first thing they want to do is start fighting.
Right. This is true. Now, the problem is, I know it's a lot of parents out there that make attempt, but you find most of the parents, they don't realize the environment that the youngster is in is very critical. Okay, they're in school 8 hours a day, but they're with that parents how many hours?
Yeah, that
you know, and people don't understand. Parents are quickly telling everyone, oh, the teacher, the schools are lousy. The schools wouldn't be that way because the problems the children, and the children, reading the children reacting that way because they don't have leadership.
Right.
What you're talking about at home.
Right. And one of the things I talk about, one of the chapters in this book talks about your leadership in your family.
Yeah.
So I talk about these leadership styles, and then I talk about how do you apply that leadership style to your spouse?
Right.
How do you apply that leadership style to a child? How do you apply it to that youth, that adolescent, and your adult children that we're talking about as we're advisors to them? How do I apply my leadership to them to help them transition into adulthood so that they're healthy, contributing members to society?
Okay, well, tell me some of the problems that you've had, you experienced with parents and parents of families with one adult.
Some of the problems we've seen, and part of what we do, we're counselors, we're family counselors. My wife and I were family counselors, so we deal with this a lot. You know, with both single parent and with two parents. And I think of a situation where we'll sit down with the parent or the parents and see what their perspective. Then we'll sit down with the child and ask what their perspective is. And many times those two perspectives are, night and day, from each other.
Right.
And a lot of times what I find out with the single parents is that the child will say, well, my mother, and let's just be honest, in the African American community, 60 to 70% of our children are growing up in one parent household.
Right.
And that's usually a woman.
Right. And you have to face that fact of what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a situation, a social situation, where what are you going to do? Are we going to well, some people they say, "Well, stop having children."
That's not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen. You can't control that. So what are you going to do? You're going to bring the single parent in. You're going to counsel them.
Counsel them.
Okay.
Educate them.
You counsel and educate them. But I find that having the parents, actually a group coming in, having similar problems. That this is very effective because people are more relaxed if they find out that you have the same problem.
You're not in this alone.
Right. In other words, I'm not a bad guy, is that they have problems just like I do. And the way to solve that is really group. And most people, they want a counselor, and they get one person, and the counselor had to sit there and, decide which side is going on. When they have the same thing coming from a group, that all of us have the same problem, you know what I mean? So how are we going to solve it? And then you'd be surprised at the answers that you get from the parents.
Oh, most definitely.
Because they're relaxed there, and they really give you information to work with.
One of the things we do, and I'm glad you mentioned a group, in our Empowering Families for Success, these groups we do on a monthly basis here in Prince George's County, in those, that's what's good about them. When we're empowering families for success, we're talking to singles, single parents, couples, whatever their situation is. And when we get those people in that room and they're in a situation and we just start talking and they just start sharing, and you get someone else going,
hey, that's what happened to me.
That's what happened
oh,
to me.
that's what you did.
You do?
Yeah, what, say, is that what, how did that work? How did you resolve that? And there's so many ways that really they can help each other, you know, more so than with the counselor, because usually the counselor, he's going to get or she's going to get so much information, but with each other, if I feel I'm more relaxed with you, and I say, yeah, you know, you tell me the problem that you had, and you did this, and you said it really works. You said, yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah, I'll try.
The other things I've done haven't worked.
Haven't worked.
I might as well try that. But you know what I find, though? A lot of the issues come down to relationship. And this is where this leadership comes in the family. It comes down to relationship. What's the number one thing I hear from teenagers? My parents won't listen to me. My mother won't listen to me. And we help parents, single or otherwise, understand something I call position power. You have a position in life that makes you the most influential person in their life. You also have a position that you have to watch your words.
Right.
Because whatever you tell them they are, you're projecting onto them what they are.
Right.
If I say you're great, you think you're great.
Right.
If I say you're dumb and you're lazy, I just labeled you dumb and lazy. You're clumsy. Well, my mother say I'm clumsy.
Well, you know what happened? I go back when I was growing up. The youngsters, you know, the mother, I remember the backhand. You know, after you were told not to do something, then there's no word repeat. So, you know, the backhand is coming, you know, and it's, I told you, boy, boom, don't do that anymore. Next time you do that, boom, you're going to do it. So a lot of parents feel now that, you know, that's abuse, but that's not abuse.
No.
See, when you correct a child physically, but some people shy away from that. They get into, say, well, you know, well, it's into your room. You don't watch TV. You don't do the iPhone or things like that. But sometimes that, I know, I remember all of those backhands, and believe me, I didn't repeat.
Right.
I did not believe whatever I was doing. I didn't repeat it.
See, unlike you, I was a perfect child, and I never got it.
Not me. But anyway, now in conclusion, now of your book, what do you advise people to do? One thing we talked about is you have to realize that you didn't make it by yourself.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. That you got to respect the past.
The past. One of the things I talk about is wherever you find yourself, always remember the people in your life that helped you get there.
Hey.
Sometimes people don't think that they've gotten to where they got with any help, but all of us have had help.
That's
all
right.
of us, if we go back in our lives, we can remember someone, you know, I met this guy, Ed Brown, and I remember he told me something, and I grabbed hold to that, and that made a difference in my life. So all of us have that, and we have to remember that and go back over our history and understand that as a person, wherever we find ourselves, we're accumulation of our past, our experiences, what we've seen, heard, and experienced. That's who we are.
Johnson, I like the story you were telling me as we drove along about Mr. Barack Obama as a leader.
As a leader.
Could you share that? Would you share
one of the things
Yeah, we have about 3 seconds. 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay. One of the things I talk about in the book, as I talk about these leadership styles, I talk about a charismatic leader. And most people, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent, when you look at Barack Obama, you view him as a charismatic leader. And not only is he a charismatic leader, but what I see about him is that he's a servant leader. And a servant leader says that I am going to do what's right by people to serve them, and their response to that is that they're going to go out and do what's right by others.
That's a terrific conclusion that you have there, and people have to understand that. And what I want to do now is just relate to some of the series that we're going to have concerning our words, concerning the SAT. I think the article in the Washington Post day before yesterday was talking about the SAT, and I'm going to do a series with Dr. Williams there about the SAT and things that we can do to improve the SAT, because with the SAT you talk about science, you talk about math, you talk about these different things that are prevalent and necessary that we in the schools are not emphasizing. Word from you.
I will say this, it starts with the parent. When we talk about verbal scores, it starts with the parent. Maybe not the math, because all parents are not good in math, but we can be good role models as far as reading is concerned. And that's what I am excited about. That's what I want to talk about. And that's what I did with my granddaughter. You know, Paige plans a party.
Well, that's what we're going to do with this series. We're going to bring in different people that emphasize in different things as far as SAT concerned. But math is very, very critical. I don't care what level you're on, you have to have a solid background in mathematics, and you have to be able to read.
Yes.
I mean, the contracts that they have now for different things, if you can't, that's why so many people are out of their homes, because they didn't read the contract. Right. They just said, how many people really read a contract when they buy a car or the fine print? That's what you have to do, and people don't read the fine print, and this is what they're going to do. I want to thank you, Mr. Johnson, for being here, and as far as leadership and pointing out the fact that you didn't make it by yourself. That's one thing you got to do, and you got to understand leadership. If you want to get in the leadership role, you got to act like one.
Yes.
See you next time.